Good morning.
Good morning, Mo. Look at that
I was
new.
wondering. Yeah, I know. I was wondering where everybody was.
Well, it's only quarter after, so.
Yeah, I started it early. Um, could you stay online for a bit? I have to go take a restroom break
Actually, I needed to run over to the records room too, so. Um, no, go ahead. I'll wait.
because I'll be right back. I mean, it's just before the meeting starts. All right.
Go.
Good morning, Liz. I'm back.
Thanks.
Morning, Maurice. Can you hear me?
Good morning, loud and clear.
Perfect. Thank you. Morning, everyone.
Sure.
Morning. Just making sure it's working. Can you hear me?
It is working. Hear you loud
Very
and
good.
clear.
Well, happy Valentine's Day, everybody. I'll sign off for
Happy
now.
Valentine's Day. I can't help but notice that wine rack up above the refrigerator back behind you.
Maybe this is not the right place for me to do my call.
No, it's fine with me.
You know, my kitchen lighting is much brighter than my office. So when I sit in the office, it always looks like I'm in a cave.
Yeah, no, it's a nice background. It just has me thinking about after work.
We're just waiting for the chairwoman to give us the go-ahead, everyone.
Good morning, everyone.
See, I do not. Good morning, Miss Barnes. Let's see, I'm not seeing any council people
And
just
happy
yet.
Valentine's Love Day to everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
Same to you.
Barnes.
Okay, now the Love Fest is over, Liz, we can get started.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning. My name is Liz Kukla. I'm the Secretary of the Board of Zoning Appeals, and I'm going to read the preamble for you this morning, this Monday, February 14th, 2022. In compliance with notification requirements of the city's open meeting law and section 101.021 of the codified ordinances of Cleveland, Ohio, 1976, notice of this meeting has been publicly posted. All boards and commissions under the purview of the City Planning Department conducts its meetings according to Robert's Rules of Order. Actions during the meeting will be taken by voice vote. Abstentions from any vote due to a conflict of interest should be stated for the record prior to the taking of any vote. In order to ensure that everyone participating in the meeting have the opportunity to be heard, we ask that you use the raise hand feature before asking a question or making a comment. The raise hand feature can be found in the participants panel on the desktop and mobile version and activated by clicking the hand icon. Please wait for the chair or facilitator to recognize you and be sure to select unmute and announce yourself before you speak. When finished speaking, please lower your hand by clicking the raise hand icon again and mute your microphone. We will also be utilizing the chat feature to communicate with participants. The chat feature can be activated by clicking the chat button located on the bottom of the WebEx screen. Please note that calling users can unmute by using *6. All meeting activities being recorded via the WebEx platform. These proceedings are also being live streamed via YouTube for public view. We have provided a link to the meeting for those who wish to speak on a particular case via our website and email. All requests to speak on a particular matter have been considered. We have also received emails from those who have provided written comment on a particular matter. Back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Can you go ahead and call the roll, please?
Yes. Ms. Barnes.
Here.
Ms. Brown.
Present.
Ms. Faith.
I am present.
Ms. Britt.
Here.
Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
All right. All right, no.
Do we have any postponements? Sorry to interrupt. We don't have any postponements this morning or withdrawals. Could we see that screen, Mr. Rowlands? Just to be sure that
Screen.
the next screen.
Right. I think
It was up. You mean the?
I do see that Councilman Griffin is here, so start with his case.
I was just going to bring that to your attention. So should we go to his case?
Yes,
Yes.
let's. Morning, Councilman.
Good morning. How you guys doing today?
Good. As a courtesy to our council people, we move their cases to the front of the agenda. So we'll be beginning with calendar number 22-007 today. And that is at 3395 East 93rd Street. Daryl Wilborn, owner, proposes to change use from a service station to an auto repair shop in a C1 local retail business district. The owner appeals for relief from the strict application of the Cleveland Codified Ordinances, as stated in the agenda and the public record, of which there are 5. And with that, to Ms. Brown for the oath.
Excuse me. This is Memo Ms. Barnes. I'd like to recuse myself from this case.
Ms. Barnes, this is Lori Wagner, counsel. Pursuant to the rules, could you tell us why you want to recuse yourself if you have a conflict or whatever?
Yes, I can. I'm an active member in the community and I know him personally.
Do you think that affects your ability to make a fair decision? Or that it might?
I just choose not to be part of it, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay. Madam Chair, may I proceed?
Yes, please.
I am swearing in all who are present for this case. Do you swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth? Please raise your hand, reply, I do. State your name and your address, please.
I do. Blaine A. Griffin, 11810 Larchmere Boulevard, Cleveland, Ohio.
I do. Kim Scott, City Planning, 601 Lakeside Avenue, room 501.
Mr. Wilborn, you can go ahead and unmute yourself and.
Daryl Wilborn, 226 Spring Creek, Sagamore Hills, Ohio.
Anyone else? Thank you. Madam Chair?
Thank you. History of the property, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This property was originally zoned general retail in 1929. In 1984, it was changed to the local retail business district. There are 2 variances on file for this address. Calendar 77-158, and that was in 1977. A variance was granted to change use of a service station that was erected in 1940 to auto repair. And then in 2012, in calendar number 12-004, a variance was granted to expand motor vehicle garage with conditions. And the conditions are that asphalt surfaces will be added for customer parking spaces that will meet the size required to meet the code, and a landscaping treatment will be installed along the front facing East 93rd Street and along Raymond Avenue. And then, Madam Chair, in the Acela system, we found that in 2012, a permit was issued to erect ornamental and black vinyl chain link fence. And then in 2016, a permit was issued to repair and alter a non-conforming sign. And that's all that I have.
Thank you. Legal standard, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Appellant is requesting a use variance and area variances from the off-street parking and landscaping regulations of the zoning code. To obtain the use variance, appellant must prove that denying the request will result in an unnecessary hardship particular to the property, such that there will be no economically feasible use of the property without the variance, will deprive the appellant of substantial property rights, and that granting the variance will not be contrary to the purpose and intent of the zoning code. To obtain the area variances, appellant must prove that denying the request will create a practical difficulty not generally shared by other land or buildings in the same district, will deprive the appellant of substantial property rights, and that granting the variances will not be contrary to the purpose and intent of the zoning code. And I would just note here that all of the area variances are based on the fact that no detail was provided in a parking and landscaping plan. I don't know if that has been done at this point. That's something the board will want to ask the appellant. Some of those variances may not be needed, but the board can't just waive the requirement that a plan be presented.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Wilborn?
Yes.
Go ahead, present your case.
Yeah. On my well, first of all, I received a grant loan from the city of Cleveland back in 2012, and everything that they asked me to do as far as with the landscaping, we did all of that. made the ample parking spots and also added gravel as it was instructed to do.
Madam Chair, this is Kim Scott, City Planning. May I offer a comment, please?
Yes, go ahead.
Sure. The issue at hand is for establishing use as a repair service facility. And what happened was that is what had not happened. There was never a change of use to the auto repair this round. Obviously, as Ms. Kukla was reading the history, there was an automotive repair use established in 1977. Mr. Wilborn has operated this since 2012, and I think that it was just that he was not aware that a change of use needed to be done. And as he also mentioned, he did participate in the storefront renovation program. And so I just want to say that city planning, in fact, is in support of the variance needed to establish the use at this location. Thank you.
Thanks. That brought some clarity because I wasn't exactly sure what was going on here. Okay, so all the requirements he got the last time he did, but there was a failure to actually change the use from, was it a service station previously? Gas station?
At some point it was, I'm sorry, go ahead, Ms. Kukla.
Yes, Madam Chair, it was erected in 1940 as a service station. And just for the record, the resolution did state that the surfaces were to be asphalt. Oh, it did state that the city only required the customer parking area to be asphalt. Just for clarification on that.
So are you saying that hasn't happened?
No, all of the things that were asked to be done had been done.
Okay, so we're basically just here for the use.
Correct.
Okay, and what we're seeing on the screen here is the actual landscape plan and parking plan or whatever that got done previously.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, Councilman.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I support this. I support this change. Mr. Wilborn is a very well-respected member in the community. I think this is a much-needed upgrade to what he's trying to do. He's a great business person and really just needed clarity. I spent a lot of time trying to understand, as you all, what he really needed, and he complied with all of the things before. And once again, he just wants to make sure he has the change so that he can continue to operate his business, which most of the community are very, very supportive of. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilman. All right, I'll open up to the board for any questions or comments or a motion.
Madam Chair, unless any of my colleagues have comments, we'll go ahead. All right. We would like to thank City Planner Kim Scott for the clarification on the situation in this case, and with support of City Planning, and also thanks to Councilman Griffin for his statement and support. It seems like this has really just need to have the I's dotted and the T's crossed on this. So, Madam Chair, with that, I think we can go ahead and approve this variance.
Thank you. Can I have a second?
Member Brown, I second.
Ms. Brown, the second. Go ahead, call the roll, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And this is also with the understanding that the customer parking spaces will be asphalt as shown on the site plan, and all of the landscaping that's shown on the site plan, which may or may not be fully compliant As I'm not sure that we saw a 6-foot wide landscape strip along the front or the 10-foot wide transition strip at the rear. The site plan does show that there are some. So with those conditions, I will call the roll. Ms. Barnes? Ms. Barnes? Oh, sorry.
He's recused.
Brown? Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Bates?
Yes.
Ms. Britt?
Yes.
Calendar 22-001 is granted. It'll be ratified next week, and we will send the appellant a letter.
Isn't that 007?
Did I say one?
Yeah.
Or yes.
Is it 7? I have 7 on the agenda.
It is 7.
It is 7. I
Okay.
apologize.
Just want to make sure I get it right.
Thank you.
It's Monday.
Yes, thanks.
All right, moving on then. Calendar number 21-203 at 8502 Huff Avenue. Structure Unlimited proposes to construct a new non-separated mixed-use retail office and assembly building on City of Cleveland-owned land in a multifamily residential district. The owner appeals for relief from the strict application of the Cleveland Codified Ordinances as stated in the agenda and the public record. Of note is number 2, section 357.07A, which states that a 10-foot specific setback is required on Huff Avenue and a 4-foot setback is proposed. Please note that the Board of Zoning Appeals is limited in its ability to grant front yard variances unless certain conditions apply. And we know that this, this happens to us frequently with the front yard setbacks. So with that, we move to Member Brown for the oath.
You're
Brown,
muted,
you
I
might
think.
be muted.
I thought I did that. Thank you. I'm swearing in all who are present for this case. Do you swear or affirm that your testimony that you're about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth? Please raise your hand, reply I do, state your name and your address, please.
I affirm. My name is Kareem Abdul-Salam. The address is 11703 Silver Creek Court, Bowie, Maryland. Structures Unlimited.
I do. My name is Ibrahim Haki. My address is 2427 Grovewood Avenue, Parma, Ohio, 44134. I think there's just a few.
Okay. Kim Scott, City Planning, 601 Lakeside Avenue, room 501.
Anyone else? Madam Chair.
Thank you. History of the property, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This property was originally zoned general retail in 1929. In 2011, it was changed to multifamily residential. There are no records in the records room that I could find for this address. There are no variances on file here at the Board of Zoning Appeals, and nothing of note in the more recent history for this address. That's all that I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Legal standard, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Appellant is requesting a use variance and area variances from the front yard setback and landscaping regulations of the zoning code. To obtain the use variance, appellant must prove that denying the request will result in an unnecessary hardship particular to the property, such that there will be no economically feasible use of the property without the variance, will deprive the appellant of substantial property rights, and that granting the variance will not be contrary to the purpose and intent of the zoning code. To obtain area variances, appellant must prove that denying the request will create a practical difficulty not generally shared by other land or buildings in the same district, will deprive the appellant of substantial property rights, and that granting the variances will not be contrary to the purpose and intent of the zoning code. And please note that section 32904C1 may limit the board's ability to grant the requested front yard setback variance. We would need the appellant to give evidence if any, of one of the exceptions from that provision of the code. Thank you.
Thank you. Maurice, I'm going to ask you about this front yard setback before we get started.
Yes, Madam Chair, we have already had extensive discussions with the applicant about this. They do not meet any of the exceptions for the board to grant. So what we are going to do here is, and we've discussed this with the applicant, we're going to go ahead and change the mapped setback in this portion of Huff Avenue. So we would request that you continue to consider this and just not approve the setback variance. That way they could still continue forward with their permitting process. And when the map change is actually enacted by council, they would no longer need that variance.
Thank you. So I like to hear. All right.
I know you do.
Okay, who is going to be the spokesperson for this case?
I will be. Ibrahim Haki.
Okay, Mr. Haki, go ahead.
All right, here's a concise overview of the project. We are seeking to do a multi-use building on this area specific for retail, perhaps some restaurants, and definitely an office space for a financial institution, which on this rendering is the building that's at the corner. We realize that it's not multifamily, but we feel that it does fit in with the neighborhood. Specifically, the building in the background is a commercial building. It's a health center. The building that's cut off to your left is also commercial space. We did design this with massing that would work with the neighborhood with the pitched roofs. And with that, we're asking for approval for the change of use. And then I can also speak regarding the landscape buffer. If you can go to the 8th drawing, which is the architectural site plan. That one, oh, go back.
Did I just pass it? That one?
Right there.
Okay.
So we do have the parking tucked away to the back side as much as we can with an entrance off of Huff. The landscape buffer is between the sidewalk and the parking. Unfortunately, we could only fit the 4 foot in there. So we're asking for a relief to use a 4 foot landscape buffer rather than the 6 foot landscape buffer. To extend it out, we would lose parking spaces, 2 parking spaces specifically, which we feel we would really need to support the retail use of this building.
Okay, Mr. Salam, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. We've been working on this project for the last year and a half. We were very pleased to come into the Huff District and to develop this project that's very important to the citizens of the Huff District, and knowing the history of Huff, and it used to being a very vibrant commercial and residential center. We feel very strong that this will add to that historical flavor, but also to move it forward, it will be an entrepreneur incubator along with a credit union, because we know in this area there's a financial desert in the Huff District. And so our goal is to really try to implement the needs of the community and give it a real sense of place. And no better situation could be than naming it after the first millionaires, black or white, in this country, Madam C.J. Walker. And so we really feel committed to this project. And we were very happy to hear from the concerns of the board of the setback. And we see that often in many of our projects, but it's nothing that we can't overcome, but we definitely want to make this happen. So we will proceed forward and try to make this variance a reality, and so that we can get to the business of doing what we do best, and that's erecting sustainable buildings.
Thank you. Kim Scott.
Good morning again, Madam Chair. Kim Scott, City Planning. This project, as Mr. Salam mentioned, I apologize, has been worked on for the last 18 months. I do want to remind the board that, as Ms. Kukla stated, that at one time this area was zoned general retail. And we know that there is an increased demand for retail in this area with all of the development projects that are taking place, residential development. And so this project is going to be an excellent fit to serve not only the people in the community locally, but even the new residents coming on board in the area. I recently had a developers roundtable session where everyone could briefly talk about their development projects, and there are over 23 projects, and that's not counting some of the ones that are actually under construction right now. So the complexion and the density of the Huff neighborhood is rapidly changing, and city planning supports the variance for this. And as Mr. Rubin stated, we're in the process of addressing the setback issue. So city planning encourages the board to grant the variance for this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Scott.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
this is Liz. I don't have anything in my file for the applicant to act on behalf of the city. I don't know if Ms. Scott could explain if there's an arrangement. Is this to be transferred to the applicant? Maybe perhaps it has been transferred and I haven't seen it in the records, or perhaps they have a lease, if we could verify that for the record.
So I will just state that an application for the land bank land was submitted last year, early last year. I want to say at least February, March. We in city planning gave our recommendation for approval in, I want to say, April or May. And I know that the city will not convey land until it has gone through the design review process. That process was completed, I believe, June of last year. And so I would just say that we probably just need to check back. You know, there's been a lot of changes within the land bank department, well, in the city in general, in terms of staffing. So I will go back and confirm what is happening with that. I believe the last correspondence that anyone had with the land bank office was with Ms. Robbins, the manager of the land bank, or was the manager, and she's no longer there. So yeah, that's all I have regarding that.
For a point of clarification, we have had subsequent conversations with Mr. Green at the land bank. Just trying to move the process forward of getting the land transferred.
And Madam Chair, I'd also like to point out that the Planning Commission did approve this project just recently.
Thank you. Liz, is that okay with you?
I think that clarifies the question, Madam Chair. I'm not sure if that would be something that the board would want to hold ratification until we see transfer. We've done it both ways in the past, where the board has granted the variance and just allowed the land bank process to work out on its own. They are two separate approvals.
All right. I'll open up to the board for any questions or a motion. If you do put up a motion, I would recommend that language about waiting for clarification on the land bank transfer, as well as we're not granting this front setback issue as well, because that's going to be changed. So go ahead, Bort.
So, Madam Chair, you want to hold ratification until we have verification of the transfer?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Unless my colleagues have any other questions or comments, I'll go ahead. All right. Madam Chair, given testimony from Ms. Scott from City Planning and a statement by Mr. Rulins, also from City Planning, the appellants have stated their case. We are aware that there are many projects going on in the Huff neighborhood, particularly of residential and multifamily. And this is the sort of project that will support those residential projects. So with that, we will go ahead pending notification that the land bank property has been transferred. We'll hold ratification for that. And also, we will not be addressing item number 2, which is with regard to the setback, the front yard setback. And so with that, we'll go ahead and approve item number 1 and item number 3 on the agenda item today. So I move that we approve those 2 variances, Madam Chair.
Second.
You have a second for Ms. Barnes. Go ahead, call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Barnes?
Yes.
Ms. Vaith?
Yes.
Ms. Britt?
Yes.
Calendar number 21-203 is granted conditionally. We will hold it until we get clarification from the land bank regarding the land transfer. Once we receive that, we will send the applicant a letter.
Thank you.
You're
Okay.
welcome.
Oh, we have 176 next. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Go
All
ahead.
right. Moving on. Calendar number 22-008. This is at 1269 West 76th Street. John and Tamara Lagutia, sorry for that, owners propose to change use of an existing one-story masonry and frame industrial building to a single-family residence with a new attached garage addition in a G3 multifamily residential district. The owners appeal for relief from the strict application of the Cleveland Codified Ordinances as stated in the agenda and the public record. And with that, Madam Chair, I will turn it over to Ms. Brown for the oath.
I'm swearing in all who are present for this case. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth? Please raise your hand. Reply, I do. State your name and your address, please.
I do. My name is Michael Cato. I'm the architect for the project. Address is 10750 Mayfield Road, Chardon, Ohio.
I do. John Lagatuda, aka Jack, 1296 West 76th Street, Cleveland, Ohio.
I affirm. My name is Jim Cutrone. I live at 1274 West 76th Street, across the street from the property.
Anyone else? Okay. Madam Chair.
Thank you. History of the property.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Property was originally zoned semi-industry in 1929. In 2003, it was changed to the current zoning of multifamily. And the most relevant information that we found in our Records Administration Office is that in 1924, a permit was issued to construct a light manufacturing building. And then calendar 94-239, in 1994, the owners of the property requested to change the use to auto repair, but that was denied by this board. Then in the more recent history in our Acela system, found that a permit was issued in 2008 to re-roof the building. 2012, there were interior alterations to an office. And then in 2021, a certificate of, sorry, not a certificate of occupancy, but a letter of authorization was issued stating that the use of the property is as a foundry. And that's all that I have, Madam Chair.
Okay. Legal standard, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Appellant is requesting area variances from the driveway rear yard distance, side yard, and fence regulations of the zoning code. To obtain the area variances, appellant must prove that denying the request will create a practical difficulty not generally shared by other land or buildings in the same district, will deprive the appellant of substantial property rights, and the granting the variances will not be contrary to the purpose and intent of the zoning code.
Okay, who will be the spokesperson for this case?
I will be. I'm Mike Cato, the architect.
Okay, Mr. Cato, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this morning and hearing our case. I'm working with Jack and Tammy. That's their nicknames. I've been working with them for years. This is their, and Jack, forgive me if I'm wrong. I think this is like your fourth residence in Cleveland. You lived downtown. Then you recently lived in a 3-story townhouse about 7 blocks or 10 blocks east of here. And that 3-story townhouse, you know, has a lot of stairs in it. And Jack and Tammy were looking for 1-level living, sort of aging in place, an aging in place type of permanent home for the rest of their lives here in Cleveland. And I've been working with them on and off over the past 10 years, looking for either empty lots or just some sort of land where they could build a custom house. And then while we were in that process, Jack and Tammy found this really cool old warehouse, which is right kind of in the middle of the Battery Park neighborhood. And so what we're doing is we're turning this into a residential 1-level living house. And the reason why we are asking for variances is because this building does not have garage access. Even though you see like a overhead door on the front of the building, which faces West 76th Street. You see that white overhead door right in the middle of the facade. We're using that space as living space. So the entire warehouse building that you see here in these photos will be turned into a 2-bedroom, 2-bath house with a living room, dining room, kitchen, and a little gallery space. And then we're adding on in the back 2 garages, one's attached, one's detached, and sort of an outdoor living space that we're calling a rain room, which really is a veranda, but it's a space you can hang out in the rain, and a small courtyard. So see, the image you see here on the drawing or on the screen, you see some elevation. So we're going to be fixing up the exterior, replacing the windows. We're going to be using sort of a factory glass looking window, black frame, so it'll look very sharp and interesting. And then our new additions, again, the 2 garages will be sort of wrapped in a architectural corrugated metal siding to sort of continue that sort of industrial vibe, which you see a lot of in the Battery Park development, which is right next door. Keeping this slide on the screen here, the areas that are shaded in gray are the sort of the new addition. There's garage 1, which is an attached garage. There's garage 2, which is an attached garage, and garage 1, which is a detached garage. And the reason why these are situated this way is because we have the ability to access the rear of our property from West 74th Street or West 74th Place, which is actually one of the newer alleys that was installed when Battery Park was developed, which is right where the cursor is. Thank you very much. Just for the record, I'll state that I used to work at City Architecture, and I worked on the Battery Park development and the design of the streets and the alleys back in 2000. The early 2000s. So I'm very familiar with how that development is designed and developed and their setbacks, because I was heavily involved with it. What we are doing here is we're going to be accessing our small driveway, which is between garage 1 and garage 2, with a fence and sort of an automated gate to create privacy back there. Garage 1 you could pull straight into, and garage 2 you could pull straight into. Garage 1 you have to maneuver 90 degrees to get into that garage. And what this does is it opens up a nice sort of veranda and outdoor sort of living space that's located off the kitchen and great room area. So our setbacks that we're requesting, there was like 5 different items located or identified on that sheet when we were working with Rodney Wells in his zoning code review. The first item, which states that the driveway and maneuvering areas shall be properly graded for drainage to remain within the boundary areas. Of course, we'll do that. We're going to be paving that driveway space between garage 1 and garage 2. It'll be drained onto our property. And then we will be creating a new apron to get to that alley, which is West 74th Place behind our house. And we do have a little maneuvering to do. We have to move a electric pole that's back there, and we're currently working with CPP on that. The second item, which states that the required rear yard is 20 feet, and we're proposing 1 foot. So, you know, in this case, we sort of have this detached garage 1. We have a 1 foot setback off the rear property line, which is to the left on the screen of the garage 1. We have just enough room there to create an automated a space for the automated gate to retract back to, so we could open up our driveway as we pull in and out. The garage walls, even though they are touching the property lines, they will be fire rated walls. So we'll have a 1 hour fire rating on all walls that touch the property lines, and all walls that are less than 3 feet from the property line, because that's a building code. In the event that there's a fire within our garage, or there's a fire in the neighboring property, at least we've got that 1 foot buffer protecting us. The reason why these garages are situated this way, it's really the only way we could access 2 cars in these 2 different garages with the limited area of about 12 feet that we have to access off of West 74th Street, which you could see to the left of the drawing. Number 3 was minimum distance from the property line is 3 feet, and we're proposing 0 feet and 2 feet. Again, kind of what I was saying earlier. Garage number 2, which is an addition at the bottom of the screen there, our existing building is 2 feet off of the north property line, again, which is at the bottom of the screen, that dotted line. Our existing building is 2 feet off the property line. We're continuing that same wall across at 2 feet. Our neighbor to our north does have a driveway across there, so we're not impeding or taking away any of their space. Their driveway does encroach onto our property 2 feet, and we're just maintaining that all the way back. And then, so again, the variance is really for 1 foot, because the zoning code says anything new needs to be 3 feet off that property line. Then if you go back to that other screen, garage number 1 hits the southern property line, which is again the top of the screen. And I apologize, there isn't a north arrow here, right where the cursor is. Yeah, that is hitting 0 feet, because we need all that space to maneuver in to get into garage 1 from where the new apron is going to be located. Number 4 is really about fencing. States that a fence running parallel to a building on the same lot shall not be less than 3 feet. So code says we have to have 3 feet between a building wall and a fence. And we're proposing 2 feet and 1 foot. So I'm going to explain the 1 foot. The 1 foot is again on the left side of garage 1, where the automated gate is going to retract into. It's not really a space. So we're going to have a wood gate that retracts back, and it's going to just slide into a pocket, so that when the gate is closed, it just looks like a clean wood fence that goes across there, garage 1 and the driveway. The other dimension of 2 feet is not correct. It's actually 2.8 feet. So one of the drawings I had earlier in this PDF shows that the existing building is 2.8 feet off of that top property line. So again, the top of that that line that goes across is really 2.8 feet, not 2 feet away from the building. So minimum distance is 3 feet according to code. We're really just 0.4 feet off of that minimum distance. So that's a very, very minimal variance we're requesting. That is going to be a 6 foot tall fence. And the reason why we're doing that is we have these large windows that we want to maintain. And that 6 foot fence gives us some privacy directly to our south, which is again, above that fence is just a vacant lot. We're not sure what's going to happen there. Item number 5 states that a fence in an actual rear and interior side yard shall not exceed 6 feet in height. Well, our fence is going to be 6 feet in height, so we're not really requesting any variances for item number 5. So I guess if you're to boil this down, number one, we're going to drain and grade the driveway properly, and it'll be paved. So that's not really a variance. And number five, we're going to have a 6-foot fence. So we're not requesting a variance for that. So really, the variances are just for the setback of this new garage, the 2 new garages, and the fence distance between the parallel wall and the property line.
Cool.
And I'm sorry if I rambled too much. It's kind of hard to explain these things in a Zoom.
No, actually, I thought you did a good job. So what's this here? Letter
So,
from
Madam Chair, we did get this very late on Sunday, so that means we didn't get it till early this morning, and we really haven't. So we were not aware of this objection until early this morning, so we really haven't had time to go over any of this. But I believe Mr. Cutrone is here to state the objections on behalf of Mr. Arthur.
Mr. Arthur is here present. I'm John Arthur.
Oh, okay.
Well, Mr. Arthur,
Arthur was not sworn in.
Right.
Right.
Sir, I would ask that you listen. Do you swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth? Please raise your hand. Repeat, I do. State your name and your address, please.
I do. My name is John Arthur, and I live at 1265 West 76th Street.
Thank you. Madam Chair.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Arthur.
I've known Jack now for a little while, and he's been a great neighbor so far, and we are all very excited to have them move in. My primary objections to this just stated around are based around my current drive, and what it looks like moving the electric pole is going to be in a parking space in my drive. So that's the primary objection I have with moving that. If that's going to be moved, I think it could be moved farther south. The other concern I have is also with that, while the building addition stays with the current lines, even like 2 feet off the property line, the fence shows it jutting in to where it's already. You pretty much can't open doors to where that would completely take parking away from my drive. And then I'm also not sure with how aggressively sloped that drive is, that apron's going to need to be to go into 74th, that there would have to be some kind of terraced retaining wall that would again take away parking, because there's about a 3-foot elevation gain from 74th to where our lots are situated.
Where are your lots, sir?
Where so in the I am number 38 there. So if the drive was going to go in there to, well, it's calling it West 75th place in the back, beach court, there would need to be, that 75th is substantially lower than what our 2 lots are situated at. So if you were to,
I'm trying to understand, if they're building on their property line, how are they taking away parking from you?
Yes.
Can you explain to me why you think that's going to happen? If your property exists the way it is now, and they're building up to their own property line, which is not part of your property, how does that take away your parking?
Well, the electrical pole, they show that going onto my parking lot.
Okay, well, we don't deal with the utility issues here. So is it something in the project here, in those variances, that you think will affect your property?
Where the fence comes out to the 2 feet, the fence comes out onto the property line, which is I understand that's the parking line, but there's been a driveway there.
Madam Chair,
And I,
could
and
I
I,
speak? Oh, I'm sorry.
oh, but I also don't know how they would handle, again, having a retaining wall there, with the grade that would need to be achieved for that apron.
Okay, so your issues today are the utility pole and the grading of their property and how it will affect your property.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Arthur, Mr. Cottrell, is that who wanted to talk?
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to welcome Jack and Tamara to our neighborhood. I've lived here since 1989 and been active in the neighborhood. So I've been through all the design efforts for Battery Park. I've seen a lot. I've been active in the block club, was co-chair for 18 years. So my background in the neighborhood is extensive. One thing that I'd like to point out, pardon me, is that these properties are artifacts of a different time. And in being so, it's difficult to fit them into the Battery Park scheme in a very superficial manner. The plan that was described by the architect is very nice. I congratulate them on how they're treating the property, but it was all about this property. And the consideration, the point I'm making about these properties being artifacts is that when you build on these properties and change them from the original industrial use, you have to really be very careful about how the changes in one property affect the others around them. So just looking at a property line and the permission for, or the ability for someone to build up to their own property line is not the whole picture. The whole picture is how it affects properties next door and in the immediate area. And I think that those are the two really important aspects of this. One is the drive and how it affects the garage and apron that's directly behind that property. I'm not sure how the architect considered, how they've decided to get around the apron and actually make it a maneuverable entrance into the back of the 1269 property. And also the issue of the building a fence out to the property line near Mr. Arthur's parking. I walked this with Mr. Arthur, and John and I have been friends for a long time. He's lived here and been a good neighbor. So we talked about this, and it does in fact impede his parking because of the arrangements of the buildings. Because his building is just the driveway distance from the existing structure. And you have to consider the practical aspects of that, his particular parking area in relationship to the new build out. And I say again, we're very happy to have Jack and Tamara here, but there are considerations I think that go beyond simply saying to oneself, well, the property owner has the ability to build right up to their own property line. So I think that the board needs to think about this in those terms. And I thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Catrone. Mr. Cato, you want to respond to any of that?
Yes, I will. We have not studied the topography yet of that rear apron that's coming in. So what we usually do is, we would probably set the two garage slabs down a little bit and lower that driveway just a little bit to transition to West 74th Street's grade. Again, when we were out there, it looked like it was relatively flat, but I understand that there might be a slight change in grade between the alley and our current rear yard. In response to and I totally agree with like all the comments that were made today. I think all neighbors need to get along, and we don't want to ruin the ability for someone to use their property for whatever we are doing. But the fence that we are questioning is, again, right on this screen. If you're looking here, that fence that's along the property line, that's not even something we're asking. That's not a variance to put a fence on a piece of property. The neighbor to our north does have an 8-foot clearance from our property line to their building to get back there. And I will also say one thing about the telephone pole or the electrical pole. I believe that electrical pole is going to be on the property line, not necessarily on the neighbor's property. I know on this drawing right here, you see like two, if you could blow this up, there's two little circles. We are just kind of indicating that the electrical telephone pole would be moved. It will most likely be right on the property line and not shown like we showed it here. And that's something that we have to work out with CPP on as to where they feel like it's the best fit. We're trying to keep it as close to our fence, and maybe it ends up at the end of our fence. I'm not sure yet. We have a case. I believe there's a case number, and we've already applied to have that pole moved, but we don't have any details of exactly where CPP wants to put it. So they're evaluating that right now. Again, so grading, yeah, we will deal with the grading between West 74th and our rear driveway and garages. Again, it might be bringing the slab down a little bit so that there isn't a huge transition there. But that fence that's on the bottom of our sheet, I mean, that's allowed by code. We're not requesting a variance for that specific fence right there.
I think I should probably add a few comments, if
Who's
that's
this?
okay. I'm the homeowner.
Okay, is this Jack?
Yes.
Okay, just
He was sworn in.
when you start speaking, yeah, you have to say who you are. So
Okay.
All right.
Sorry, I'm
Thank you.
not used to these.
No
Well,
problem.
my wife and I have been living we were living on West 67th since 2003. So we were here in the beginning when all this development started happening. We fell in love with the neighborhood, and we've known Michael since the 1990s, and we wanted one floor living for a long time. And when we found this building, we absolutely fell in love with it. And before I did anything, I went to Councilwoman Spencer and asked her if I wanted to, if we bought this and wanted to convert it to residence, would we have her support? And she was very enthusiastic about helping us. There was, I'm very detail oriented, and there was one big problem in the beginning that really troubled me, and that was the fact that we have no access to our backyard. So we only own 2 feet 8 inches to the south. That's on the upper part of what you're looking at right now. So you can't get a car in there. You can't drive your car into your backyard, obviously. Now there is a 10-foot driveway that separates us from our neighbor, John Arthur, to the north. And at considerable expense, I had this survey done, And I have hired a lawyer, Adam Rosen, who deals in contract law and real estate law. And he drew up an easement, as you'll see, so that I could have in writing a legal document that said I would be able to drive my vehicles from West 76th Street into my backyard, because obviously I have no choice to the south. I only own 2 feet 8 inches. So to the north, there is a 10-foot concrete driveway that separates my building from John Arthur's. And I own 2 feet of that from West 76 going all the way to the back of the property. John owns 8 feet of that. And I got to tell you, I invested about $7,500 between legal fees and surveys so I could have the easement signed by my neighbor prior to the purchase of my building. And although we had COVID and we had a lot of delays, John informed me via text before the closing of the building that he was unable to sign, at the advice of his lawyer, he was unable to sign that easement. So I was requesting an easement to allow me to use my 2 feet of the driveway to get behind my building and park my cars. You see the gate is on my building here. That's the gate that John uses for his driveway that he owns 8 feet of and I own 2 feet of. And he has his gate on my building. And I want to be a good neighbor. But when I went to buy this property, I needed to have access to my backyard. And at the very last minute, the rug was pulled out from under me and there was no easement signed. So now I go ahead and invest $325,000 in cash for my building, and I can't use my backyard. Now, the last thing I thought would have happened on this conference call is that my neighbor, who needs my 2 feet, by the way, to use his driveway, is going to decide that he's uncomfortable with me entering my property from a street that my architect designed for off-street access. This is what the city wants. They don't want more traffic on West 76, me and my wife pulling our 2 vehicles in and out. They would love for us, you would think, to use an access road in the back. So once again, I hired a surveyor to survey the back property for the city of Cleveland and for First Energy and for Cleveland Public Power. Because if we go back to the diagram that shows the building planned by Michael Cato, you'll see that one. Okay, if we can zoom in on the far bottom left corner, you'll see that there is a First Energy utility pole that I'm going to have moved exactly 10 feet to the north. It will remain 100% on my driveway, on my property. I have to hire an attorney to draw up another easement for First Energy to allow this to happen. So now I have 2 surveys, so I can park my vehicle from the back on an access road the city designed for exactly that purpose. I've got the expense of First Energy moving a utility pole with 3 transformers on it. That's not cheap. And I'm in the process working with some very, very helpful people at the city of Cleveland in sidewalks and pavement and bureaus and wherever else, because there is a Battery Park streetlight that is going to have to be relocated. And we're in the process of getting approval to do that. So, and before I even bought this property, I spoke to John about my plans of wanting to enter and exit from the rear, and I asked him if he would be interested, and he said, well, absolutely. And now he seems opposed to the idea of me entering and exiting my property from the rear. And I brought up to the Bureau of Sidewalks you know, the apron, and the apron is part of the public right of way. Okay. So if John thinks the apron is going to be, you know, affecting him in any way, shape, or form, you know, that's not going to happen, because if there is an apron that the city approves, it's going to be in the public right of way. Now, I will give this. I will give John this. I don't actually, now that I see this, I think John has a very good point about the fence. Okay, the fence which is on the property line there. Now, when Michael originally designed this garage 2 and rain room, he had it on my property line. And I said, no, Michael, you know what? Let's move it in line with the building, okay? Let's move it in line with the building, because I want to make sure that John has, you know, ample access to and from. And he redid it. So you'll see that the building is now, the added building, garage 2, is in line with my building. Now, I don't know about the fence, if we have to move the fence or not. I think we're going to need every foot of that, but that's my property. So I'm not sure why John would think me putting a fence on my property would hinder him and his parking. You know, I don't get that. I really don't get it at all. So, you know, I've tried to remain calm during this, but you know, it's a challenge. Said my piece.
Thank you, Jack. I think that brought some clarity to the situation here. Mr. Cato, did you have anything else you wanted to add from the owner?
Yeah, I will. This is Mike Cato speaking. Yeah, that fence, you know, maybe we could clip the corner like at a 45-degree angle where the fence reaches, you know, garage number 2, just to kind of help ease that. But we kind of need all that space between garage door number 1 and where we show that fence at the bottom of the sheet. The lot is 40 feet wide. Garage 1 is 18 feet deep, so that only leaves us with about 22 feet to pull out and sort of maneuver. It's almost like a parallel parking space. Once that gate opens up and we come in off West 74th Street, we kind of have to, luckily they have a small vehicle, kind of shimmy into that space. Garage 1 is always designed for a smaller vehicle. Garage 2 is designed for a larger vehicle, but we definitely need that backup space there. It's like we can't offer another 2 feet of this space to the next door neighbor because we need it, and it's, you know, it's Jack and Tammy's land right there, and there's, again, that fence right there. That's not part of the variance request. It's, you're allowed to put a fence on a piece of property.
Right.
That's all I have to add.
Madam Chair, this is Jim Catrone. I think part of the confusion here about this particular issue about the entrance is the lack of detail on the plan here regarding how the entrance is going to maneuver around the existing properties, the existing apron for a garage. There's a garage that belongs to a property that faces Goodwald. And I guess that's from my perspective. Now I'm not speaking for John. From my perspective, that was where some of the confusion is, because it just wasn't clear to me when I walked the property line with John how that was going to happen. There wasn't very much detail.
So, Mr. Catrone, do you have an idea of what's going to happen now?
Actually, I don't. It looked so close. The property line looked so close to the apron for that garage that I have a hard time imagining exactly how the driveway is going to provide an entrance into that. And I'm not saying this, please don't misunderstand, Jack and the architect. I'm not trying to argue with you about anything. I'm just trying to be clear about what what the specifics are of how that entrance will affect the existing apron for that house on Goodwall and the garage that's directly behind Jack and Tamar's property.
Jack Largatude, am I allowed to maybe answer a question as it relates to this other property and their garage?
Yeah, we'll seam it up after this, but go ahead.
Okay, so I've had another, and it is very difficult to get surveyors to come out and survey. They're so backed up. Prior to this meeting, I hired Sesco surveyors to do a detailed survey of this area in the back to make sure that I wouldn't be infringing on anybody else's property for my driveway entrance. And it clearly shows that it has nothing to do with any other private property. Whether the street light gets moved to the north or south hasn't been determined, but there are plenty of options for the Cleveland Public Power street light to be moved onto public right-of-way, not on any private property. And in no way, shape, or form does my driveway entrance in the rear affect anybody else's private property. It may cut into the public right-of-way with the apron, but I was told early on in this process that's 100% okay by some director in sidewalks and streets and whatnot. So, I mean, I've been a very conscientious neighbor, and I wouldn't want to do anything that would infringe on anybody else's freedom here. I've been over backwards. So, great to bring up these concerns that would affect other people. I appreciate the neighborhood looking out for itself, but there's nothing here that I'm doing that would hurt anybody else in any way, shape, or form. And again, that First Energy pole is going to be on my property. It's not going to be on John Arthur's property.
Hold on.
And the street light, yeah, you can see it right there. Perfect. That street light you see in the center, that's Cleveland Public Power, or Cleveland Public Power. That's hasn't been determined whether or not it's going to be moved to the north or to the south or replaced with another street light that would be in line with the existing public right-of-way. But there is nothing that I'm doing in any way, shape, or form, including apron, that's going to be infringing on anybody else's property. And I've had the survey done to show that.
Okay, thank you. I think we've heard everyone's side here. I'm gonna open it up to the board for any questions, comments, or a motion.
Madam Chair, a couple of questions, I think, to the architect, Mr. Cato. Could you tell me again the distance from garage number 1 to the fence line? Was it 22 feet that you said?
I'm sorry, from garage number 1 to the fence line.
Right.
Well,
Your backup distance?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's 22 feet for backup distance from the garage
Okay.
door to that fence. Correct.
And the apron, is it a standard 12-foot apron?
It's going to be 12 feet, whatever we could fit in there. Now, I will say two things about this. There is that horizontal line that goes across on our drawing to that where the curve is of the alley. I think that alley is actually a little bit closer to our property, but that is that horizontal line indicates roughly where that first house in Battery Park is located, and their garage is further to the left. So we are basically just going to be adding, a concrete apron in that little rectangle space right there.
Okay. And then my other question is the lot, I believe Jack has said has been professionally surveyed twice. So you have topos for this. Do you have a sense of the grade difference between
I thought it might be
level?
like, I'm sorry.
Yeah, just go ahead.
I thought it might be like maybe a 2-foot difference between like the back edge of the existing warehouse and the alley. Again, the garage would be the transition element. The garage might be down a little bit. The driveway might be down a little bit, a little lower than the floor of the house. We haven't gotten that far with the grading yet because again, because as Jack said, surveyors and civil engineers are so backed up right now. We don't want to go through a whole grading exercise if the variances could not get approved.
Right. I can appreciate that. I've had to have my lot professionally done 3 times. So, but you do have topos for this. So right?
Yeah,
Yes.
we will be presenting once we go forward. We will have a engineered site plan that we submit with our permits that shows all the grading and everything. Of course, that'll all be checked by the city building department.
All right. So we have a grade difference that is solvable
Yes.
with modifications to placement and grading for the addition.
We do.
Correct?
We will.
Yeah.
We will.
Okay. Madam Chair, I think that concludes my questions. If anyone else has anything.
Does it seem like it? I'll entertain a motion.
Okay. All right. And I just want to be clear also, you have you fulfilled item number 1 and item number 5 then? So we do not need variances for those?
Well, I guess when I said number 1, which was that the driveway and maneuvering areas shall be properly graded for drainage to remain within the boundary areas, that's something we will do once we submit our permit drawings. We will make sure that it's graded, we're not affecting the neighbors. That's just something we have to do. Building department's going to obviously require that. And number 5 was that the fence in the actual rear and interior side yard shall not exceed 6 feet in height. The height of the fence is not provided. Well, we didn't write the height of the fence, but we are proposing a 6-foot fence, so it's not any higher than what's allowed by code.
Okay, so we're still going to need to do variances for those. And typically what we'll want is a clip of the proposed fence and the specific height. So that'll be a condition.
Okay.
Anything else, Madam Chair, that you can see that we need to put a condition on for this?
Nope. I think 1 and 5 were the top 2. So we got that.
All right, great. All right, Madam Chair.
Excuse me, just to be clear, so number 5 is not needed because they already did say that they're going to be doing a 6-foot fence.
Okay, great.
Correct?
Thank you, Maurice. All right.
He can still provide a cut sheet to indicate that it's a 6-foot fence. I'm sure that'd be easy.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so with that, given the testimony that we've heard today, and I think the homeowner's testimony was particularly valuable in knowing that there's been 2 professional surveys done of this property, that there is 2 feet of property on the boundary with the neighbor. We're also looking at the apron that's going to be in the public right-of-way. And when they go to build, the topo will be, the topography and grading will be modified as necessary to allow for the grading, the topography difference. And we're looking at items number 1 through 4. 22 feet is the maneuvering for the motor court, which is pretty tight. So that is a necessary distance to be able to maneuver the car. The proposed number 2 is pretty standard for this neighborhood and for what we see often. And 3 and 4 are also pretty standard. Of note on number 4 is Mr. Cato has stated that the distance is not 2 feet, but 2.8 feet. So the variance is a 0.4 foot difference. So, and we will make it a condition that you will supply us with a cut sheet of the fence and what it will look like. So we'll want to see a drawing of the actual, what the fence will look like, and also the exact measurements. So I think those are our conditions on that. And so with that, Madam Chair, we're going to go ahead and approve. I would move that we approve variances 1 through 4 on this case.
Thank you. Can I have a second, please?
Second, Ms. Barnes.
Ms. Barnes with the second. Go ahead, call the roll, Ms. Cooper.
Point of clarification, Madam Chair. Again, I don't think you're granting a variance to number 1. They're just saying that they're going to provide those details for 1 and 5, correct? Because you're not granting a variance to.
Yeah, definitely not 5. And yeah, number 1, they have testified that they will do that in accordance with building and housing. So, so as long as they provide that, we're fine. Okay, we got a second for Ms. Barnes. Go ahead, call the roll, Ms. Kukla.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And this is, again, clarifying, we are approving items 2, 3, and 4 on the agenda.
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Barnes?
Yes.
Ms. Bath?
Yes.
Ms. Britt?
Yes.
Calendar number 22-008 is granted conditionally. We will hold ratification until we receive that updated cut sheet. And once we receive that, we will ratify the case and send the applicant a letter.
And Maurice and Ms. Faith, we're going to go to West 41st Street first. Then we'll save this appeal for last.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Madam Chair, at your request, we are going to move calendar number 21-160 to the next item. This is a rehearing. The original hearing date was January 24th of 2022. Drama Free Ministries owner proposes to change the use from store and office to a restaurant in a C2 local retail business district. The owner appeals relief from the strict application of the Cleveland Codified Ordinances as stated in the agenda and the public record. Of note, this variance was approved pending revised drawings showing 10 parking spaces. The city requested a rehearing to allow time to present the plan again, showing that the parking lot is not on the same parcel. So with that, I will turn it over to Ms. Brown for the oath.
I'm swearing in all who are present for this case. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth? Please raise your hand. Reply, I do. State your name and your address, please.
I do. Henry Flournoy, 3532 West 41st Street.
Anyone else? Madam Chair.
Thank you. Liz, can we just get a summary of what's going on here? We've had the history of the property already.
Yes, Madam Chair. Ms. Lisa Ray from Building and Housing helped us go back and forth and get this tidied up. This appellant, when it was reviewed for the first hearing, there were issues with the scale and the lack of the appellant showing the actual building that's on the lot. And so the appellant has made changes to that site plan, and he brought it to the board a second time, and it was brought to our attention that it wasn't on the same parcel. So what we have before you now is, and again, with the help of Ms. Ray from Building and Housing, we have a drawing drawn to scale. The site plan shows the shed on the lot. It also shows 3 feet of landscaping, and there's an ornamental fence. It also shows that there's drainage on the lot. Now, the site plan doesn't exactly show that it's on a separate parcel. However, we have made notes on this site plan that a lot consolidation is required, and we made those notes in the application from Building and Housing as well. I think that's all that you might want to know here.
Great, thank you. Legal standard, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Appellant is requesting area variances from the off-street parking and landscaping requirements of the zoning code. To obtain the area variances, appellant must prove that denying the request will create a practical difficulty not generally shared by other land or buildings in the same district, will deprive the appellant of substantial property rights, and the granting the variances will not be contrary to the purpose and intent of the zoning code. And I'd just like to add this project again, the variances were written up based on the fact that there was no parking or landscaping plan included originally. I don't know if the variances are still needed at this point in time. I think maybe city staff could address that.
Okay, Mr. Riccardi, your hand is up.
Yes, with the addition of the plan, that will become his plan now. It was lacking before. The only variance that would be needed is that the landscape strip along the street screening the parking lot is required to be 6 feet wide, and it looks like it's 3 foot wide. So that would be the only variance required.
Thank you, Mr. Riccardi. Okay, Mr. Flournoy, if you had anything else you wanted to add, seems like the city got you properly represented here, but go ahead.
No, Madam Chair, I just want to say thank you and the board for allowing me to come back on this Zoom call again. I know that it's been a lot to unpack. It's been a lot to unpack for me as well. I hired some people and thought that I was, doing some things in my best interest. And I ended up sitting down with some capable people from the city to kind of help me maneuver this thing. And I just, want to move forward at this point, if possible.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, board, we only have one variance here to grant for the landscaping strip, so I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, we're very glad that Mr. Flournoy was able to get assistance to get this all squared away for himself. As much as we enjoy seeing him, we'd like him to be able to move forward on his project. So with that, I move that we go ahead and approve his variance at this time.
Thank you. Can I have a second?
Second, Ms. Barnes.
Ms. Barnes is the second. Go ahead, call the roll, Ms. Kukla.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Barnes?
Yes.
Ms. Babe?
Yes.
Ms. Brett?
Yes.
Calendar 21-160 is granted conditionally, noting that we are only granting section 2 today. It'll be ratified next week, and we will send the applicant a letter.
Thank you.
Good luck to you, Mr. Flournoy.
Thank you all.
All right, Madam Chair, on to the last case for today. That's calendar number 21-192. This was postponed from January 24th of 2022. This is BR Canez Construction Incorporated appeals under the authority of Section 76-6 of the Charter of the City of Cleveland and Section 329.02D of the Cleveland Codified Ordinances, the decision of the City Planning Commission to deny approval of a proposed townhome development. This was filed December 3rd of 2021 with no testimony. The first postponement was made at the request of the Law Department to allow time for further review. And with that, to Ms. Brown for the oath.
I am swearing in all who are present for this case. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth? Please raise your hand, reply, I do. State your name and your address. Okay, go ahead.
This is Tony Coyne and Katie Weber. We're land use counsel to the applicant. The address is 1001 Lakeside Avenue. I guess if I could just do an overview, Hannah Cohen.
Wait, just a
Mr.
moment.
Coyne, we
Let's
need to
see if
swear
there's
everyone
anyone
in
else.
Swearing
before you
in.
start talking.
Sorry?
We need to swear everyone in
swearing you
before you
in.
start talking.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I thought you did. I'm sorry.
No.
No, we need to get everyone, then we'll call on you.
Okay, sorry about that.
No problem.
Anyone else, please?
Hannah Cohan, I'm with BR Canez. Address is 7555 Friedel Drive in Concord, Ohio.
Thank you.
Looks like we have Stephen Fay as well.
Steve Zamborski from 1915 West 47th Street. I do.
Fay Harris, 1810 West 47th Street. I do.
Aide Pagan. I do. Address
I couldn't hear her. Who just spoke?
Aide Pagan.
Yeah, we can barely hear you, ma'am.
Okay, I will see about increasing my route. Can you hear me now?
Better, yes.
A little better, yeah.
A little bit.
Okay, my name is Aide Pagan, and my address is 1936 West 47th Street.
Okay, anyone else? Madam Chair.
Thank you. All right, do we need history of the property here?
No, this is an administrative appeal. We
That's
do
what I thought.
research this.
Okay, legal standard.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Appellant is appealing an administrative decision. The standard of review to be applied is whether the administrative decision was illegal, arbitrary, capricious, unreasonable, or unsupported by the preponderance of substantial, reliable, and probative evidence. If the appellant fails to meet this burden, the administrative decision must be affirmed.
Thank you. And Lori, did you want to, because the city had to look over this first before it came back. So is there anything you wanted to add before we get started?
No, I don't think so. There are just some technical things I needed to look into as far as the appeal goes, but those have been resolved and the appeal's properly before this board.
Okay, thank you.
I think there's a history here, but I'm sure Mr. Coyne will adequately detail that.
All right, go ahead, Mr. Coyne.
Madam Chair and members of the board, again, my name is Tony Coyne and I'm land use counsel for the applicant, BR Canez Construction. The design will be handled by Hannah Cohen. She is the architect for the project. The brief history I'm going to give to you, because you've actually seen this site before, but this was a townhouse development undertaken under the zoning code and is in complete compliance with the zoning code. It got approved by planning and then it was disapproved by planning, and we are in court over that prior decision, okay? While in court, the court in the 8th District and Common Police Court as well in Cuyahoga County, they have a mediation program, and they requested we submit the matter to mediation, and we participated in mediation. We then were suggested to meet with planning staff to see about changing the project and amending it. So we did do that. Since we were already code compliant, it was a bit of a challenge, but there were changes made to the plan that were done to make it more compliant, if you will, to a not yet approved townhouse code that is being reviewed by City Council. So in other words, what we had learned is that this project and other townhouse projects, they're trying to get more compliant with the new townhouse code. May sound unusual because it's not in effect, but we had our architect take a look at it. We then met with the former planning director and the neighborhood planner, and we enhanced the project. We were told, however, that we had to go back to the planning commission. In other words, we couldn't reach a traditional settlement before the mediator. We had to go back to the planning commission. On October 5th of 2021, we went back to the planning commission and Hannah Cohen presented the project. At the commission, there were 2 modifications to the plan that were requested, and the applicant agreed to those modifications. There was little discussion. A motion was made to approve the revised plan, and it was seconded. However, only 2 members voted for the revised plan and 4 voted no. During the discussion, there was no comment as to why it was being turned down. The former planning chairman stated that he thought the project was a little bit too clunky. That was his term, which is not in the code, of course. And there was no explanation given. So we're here today to urge the Board of Zoning Appeals to reverse the Planning Commission because I don't think it met the standard that Ms. Wagner just described to you in any way. And by doing so, it would resolve the litigation that's presently pending in court if this could be approved as amended. I'll now let Hannah Cohen walk you through the revised plan briefly so that you can see what's been changed, if that's okay, Madam Chair.
Okay, before Hannah starts, I have a couple questions. I'm a little confused about if you're in litigation.
Yes.
Currently.
Yes.
How does our ruling affect that when you're already in court? So I'm a little confused about how, if you're already in litigation, how you can come back to us and that hasn't been solved yet.
Excellent question, Madam Chair. The fact of the matter is we would advise the court that the settlement that was discussed before the mediator has been approved by the city's authorized boards. And that's what we thought was going to happen in planning, but it did not happen.
Okay, and Lori, this is an okay thing here. I know you reviewed it before, but just for the record, because
yes, that wasn't the issue I was reviewing, but if in fact the board approves this today, then I presume that would make the court case moot. If not, they'll need to proceed as before.
Okay.
Madam Chair. Of course, it's always better to try to get the administrative approval than to have a court-imposed settlement. So that's what I think the appellants are doing here today.
Madam Chair, on that question that you're asking, which I think is an important question, but if we approve and the Planning Commission doesn't, aren't they still in court?
No, we would, if I can respond, Madam Chair.
Our decision would appeal the Planning Commission. So they're coming to us to appeal that decision.
Thank you so much.
No problem. Okay, go ahead, Hannah.
Madam Chair, this is Liz. If I could ask one thing. Has the appellant applied? Is this under a separate B number that might actually make a difference? Or are we still looking at the same building and housing application that was made at the original hearing or application back in, was it last year or the year before?
Yeah, this was done as a new application at the request of the law department. That's correct.
Thanks.
Okay, Hannah, go ahead now. This is an appeal of a decision, so we don't need the same presentation you would give Planning Commission because we don't rule on design and all that kind of stuff. So just give us the highlights.
Okay, thank you. Just a quick background, our site is shown here. We are at the southwest corner of the intersection of West 47th and Bridge Avenue. If you could go to the next slide, you can see some of the context photos of the existing properties around. This site was a former auto repair shop that has since been demolished and is now sitting vacant. There is a commercial market across the street on Bridge, townhouses on the northeast corner, and a single family residence to the direct east of our site. You can see some of those. You can see some of the commercial buildings on that site. This slide we're looking at now is an example of some of the townhouses and apartment buildings that are very common up and down Bridge that are adjacent to our site. There's one here shown at our same intersection at 47th and Bridge, one that is just south of us on 47th Street, and then up and down Bridge, the 48th Street intersection, on both sides of the street, 50th, 52nd, 54th, and on and on. So we wanted to show exactly how common townhouses are on, especially particularly on the corners of Bridge, as well as commercial and institutional buildings. This diagram is just expounding on that, so you can see in red would be mid to high density residential sites, and yellow is commercial and institutional sites. The next slide is showing setbacks. This is something that had come up in some of our prior meetings on this, so we wanted to keep it included. We worked with planning staff when designing this project to make sure we were using the correct townhouse district designation based on the setbacks of the adjacent buildings, and that was determined to be an RA3, and this is just a diagram of how we came to that conclusion, as well as with the approval of city planning staff. This slide is a zoomed out version showing how Lorraine is a heavy commercial avenue. Coming back to Bridge is more of a mix of commercial and mid-density residential. And as you move north into the more residential neighborhood, you get to Franklin, which is more residential. So Bridge is that midpoint in between Lorraine and Franklin, where it is appropriate to have that mix of commercial and mid-density residential. This is a diagram showing setbacks. There's a green line on there. If you can zoom in, you'll see it a little better. That shows 3 feet off the property line for all the blocks around our site. There's a red line at 5 feet and a blue at 10 feet. So you can see the setbacks are very close to the street, up and down Bridge. It's pretty common to be in that 0 to 5 foot setback range. The next slide is our site plan. This is the site plan that was originally approved by the Planning Commission, and then it was later denied by the Planning Commission, the same plan. I just wanted to put it here to refresh everyone's memories. It was 2 buildings with 12 total units. The zoning analysis is on the left-hand side. This is fully compliant with the zoning code when it got denied and when it got approved initially. If you go to the next slide, I'll take you through what modifications we've made that Tony mentioned in this arbitration process we've been pursuing with the guidance of city planning staff. So the biggest change, or the first major change we did, was to reduce the unit count from 12 to 11 units. So we've eliminated the units and broke that interior building from 1 larger building into 2 smaller buildings. So we have 11 units total now with 3 buildings instead of the 12 units at 2 buildings that we had before. Eliminating that unit has allowed us to achieve 2 goals that we were pursuing. One is to increase the setbacks. So our interior frontage setback, which is from units 7 through 11 to our interior property line, there is increased from 7 feet to 9 feet. Our interior side yard setback against unit 11 is increased from 5 feet to 10 feet. We've also added a shared public or green space in between units 8 and 9 that would be landscaped and would be an amenity for the residents. We have shrunk the footprint of units 7 through 11, so we took square footage out of our finished units to again allow for those increased setbacks and open up the site for some more green space. So you can see the footprint was reduced from 27 and 26 feet down to 25 feet, which is the absolute minimum that we can do that maintains code compliant for the buildings. The other focus of our revisions was on enhancing the appearance of the auto court. We were proposing previously some stamped decorative concrete. We have changed it, so it's now 100% of the courtyard is a decorative dyed and stamped concrete to enhance its visual appeal. We have also added landscaping areas within the auto court, so we'll have opportunities for planting to soften the space. If you go to the next slide, on the left is the previous zoning analysis. On the right is our current zoning analysis with our revised plan. And then highlighted in yellow, we've added some of the items that Tony referenced that are not currently required by code, but are going to be potentially implemented by council in the next coming year. So we're trying to show a good faith effort to work towards compliance with what we believe will be required in the future, but is not actually required of us now. So
Hannah, just a quick question before you continue. I think I heard this. I just want to make sure I get this straight. So your first submission got approved by Planning Commission. And so did the new townhouse code trigger you to have to go back to them? Or
no.
You made a change and then that's what happened.
Madam Chair, could I explain maybe the legal things here? They had to go back to Planning Commission. If you recall, this Planning Commission approved this project. It came to, the appeal was taken to BZA by some neighbors. The Board of Zoning Appeals last time did not find that the decision was arbitrary or unreasonable. It just felt that their neighbors were indicating they had not all gotten notice. There was some dispute about that, but the Board of Zoning Appeals sent it back for another hearing just so everybody who wanted to participate could be sure in participating. And the plan, as I understand it, is identical. There may be a few changes that are more code conforming, but the new townhouse code cannot be enforced unless and until it's enacted by council, and it would not apply to this project because projects are judged by the zoning code as it exists at the time of the, right, at the time of the application. I think what the appellant here is indicating is they made some changes just to make it more conforming with what the city is planning to have in the townhouse code, but that code is not applicable at this point in time. And I think the appellant can correct me if I got any of that wrong.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get at, just to make sure, so that everyone had the facts straight, including me. So thank you, Lori. Go ahead, continue, Hannah.
Thank you. And I would just say we agree with Lori's summary there that matches our history. The next slide is just a version of our site plan without all the notes over it showing the changes, so you can get a clean look at it. But basically we have 6 units with fronts on Bridge. Those units all have porches facing the street. We have wraparound corner porches on the corner unit at unit 6 and also unit 7. We are proposing one single curb cut that's coming off 47th Street, which is the less busy of the 2 streets. There's an existing concrete apron at the northeast corner of our site. We are adding public bike racks there. We have a pedestrian walkway towards the rear of our site that provides pedestrian access to the interior frontage units. And that keeps the pedestrian circulation separate from the vehicular circulation in our auto court. Next slide, please. This is a sample floor plan. I think we can probably skip this. One thing to note, every unit has a private roof deck, so everyone has some public outdoor space that's shared and some private outdoor space on their own roof deck. The top elevation is the building viewed from Bridge Avenue. As I said, every unit has a porch. They have custom metal awnings, custom railings. The second floor, which is the main living level of these units, some of them are accented with Juliet balconies, so you have a sliding door and a little decorative metal accent to bring some architectural character and also increase eyes on the street and activation of the street front on Bridge, which is that main corridor. The bottom elevation shows the 2 side elevations on West 47th Street. We have some decorative bays bumping out to break up the massing of the building. The primary material that you'll see on all of these street-facing facades is brick. Next slide, please. You can see on top, this is the interior elevation from the auto court of the front large building on Bridge, and then just the other side of the buildings. Next slide will show you the interior facing units at the top. That's the front of them. All of these units have a large amount of glazing to bring in natural light and enhance the character of the building. The bottom elevation is showing the auto court side from the interior frontage units, and you can see those units have a little bit of a cantilever on them, which allows us to introduce some decorative brackets and bring a little more definition to that area of the building. The next slide will show you our material palette. On the left, you can see our primary material is brick. We have 2 different shades of brick. A medium buff tone brick for the lower level of the buildings, and then it is a cream brick on the upper level of the buildings, which is a detail we worked out with the Architectural Review Board. We have a high-end garage door that has a wood grain and glass in it. You can see we do have a little bit of a siding. It's in a sage green color. Towards the middle on the right-hand side, you can see a sample of what the stamped decorative concrete would look like in the auto court. And then across the bottom, you can see some of the custom metal accents we're proposing, the decorative balconies for the Juliet balconies, light fixtures, and again, that bike rack that will be a public amenity. The next slides will take you through rendering so you can see what the exterior is going to look like. Again, you can see the two-tone brick, the large amount of glazing, the porches. We are proposing adding landscaping, including street trees along Bridge that you can see in those renderings. These are both views from Bridge. The next slide will show you from Bridge looking east, as well as two views from 47th Street looking towards the sides of the buildings. The next slide particularly was just to focus in on some of the detailing we're proposing at the auto court, which has come up in prior meetings. We have brick wing walls that screen the vehicular entrance. We have landscaping around them. We have the landscaping and that stamped decorative concrete in the auto court. And then this is just highlighting the particular requirements in the code of an auto court, and I wanted to just emphasize that we are complying with all of those items. The next slide shows you an aerial view of our project. This in particular is focused on the interior frontage units we have. I've highlighted the code sections and a diagram from the code on the right that spell out exactly what is required and how to design an interior frontage unit, and we are fully compliant with all of those items. The last thing I just want to touch on briefly is the section in the code, this townhouse code, particularly focused on site planning and design and the 4 criteria laid out in there of how to evaluate these projects. The first criteria under site planning and design is compatibility. Our project is designed with the scale, height, setbacks, and orientation to the street that fully complies with the zoning code and is designed specifically to maintain the neighborhood continuity and continue the character of the existing architecture. We're using, again, a brick cladding, which is found very frequently on the older townhomes in the neighborhood. Juliet balconies, the custom metal accents, front porches, including the wraparound porches at the corners, again, all to enhance the architectural character of the neighborhood. The site layout is arranged, again, with a single curb cut off of 47th Street. The site is existing, has 3 curb cuts, so we're reducing it from 3 down to 1, which enhances pedestrian safety and, again, keeps the vehicular traffic off of the main thoroughfare. We have specifically separated the pedestrian circulation on our site from the vehicular circulation, which increases both pedestrian and vehicle safety. And we have provided a shared public green space as well as private open outdoor space on the roof deck. So we have a mix of both of those, which are specifically mentioned in the site layout section. For the building features, drawing on examples of architecture from the neighborhood and to create active, attractive street frontages that promote safety and walkability. Again, we are using high quality materials such as brick. We have front porches and Juliet balconies to promote safety, eyes on the street, and active engagement on the street fronts. We're also contributing to the active street frontage by bringing new residents to a currently vacant site that has now been sitting there for several years, just empty. And we're providing a public amenity with the bike racks going into that existing apron. For circulation and parking, the requirements focus mostly on separating the pedestrian and the vehicular traffic to promote safety, which we have done. Again, we are reducing the curb cuts from 3 to 1. We are increasing on-street parking by reducing those curb cuts. We are providing new street trees, and we do not have any front-loaded garages or any garages that back up directly onto pedestrian walkways. So again, separating those garages from the pedestrian walkways. And the last thing I wanted to touch on the code, there is also a part of it specifically speaking to projects that are on corners, instructing that they should be taking context from buildings on the adjacent corners, that intersection as well as the adjacent blocks. I wanted to reiterate that there is a strong presence of townhouse, apartment, and commercial buildings, specifically on the corners of Bridge Avenue. Over 2/3 of the corners in just a 2-block radius from our site are all multifamily or commercial projects in either direction down Bridge.
So with that presentation, I'll just state that the powers and duties of this board permit it to reverse the decision of another board if it finds that the board acted either arbitrarily or unreasonably or an abuse of discretion. And in this particular case, I just want to request the board to do that. I know it's rather unusual. However, in this particular case, unlike the matters you reviewed earlier that you approved, where there were several variances, there are no variances from any section of the code for this project. And it's unfortunate, but at the Planning Commission meeting, we did ask for their input. They requested 2 modifications. Hannah readily agreed to make those changes. And we asked if there was anything else. They didn't ask for anything else. And then it didn't get the requisite number of approval votes to be resolved. So we're here without any evidence as to what else we could do when we're code compliant. So we don't know what to do. And I have to correct Hannah on one thing. Yes, this was an auto repair gas station for several decades, but the most recent use that my client, when they bought it, it was a fentanyl distribution facility in which 11 people are in federal prison, investigated by the United States government and the U.S. Justice Department. The building was torn down. There had to be some remediation work done. My client has sustained thousands and thousands of dollars in expenses in holding this property for the past 3 years. And I really don't know what else to do. This is a very unfortunate situation for the client to be in. And I know there are some neighbors that just don't want a townhouse project in their neighborhood, because there are others, and I don't know what else to say. They'd have to explain themselves, but they just don't want it. And I just think, as an advocate of good planning and zoning, we have to follow our code. We have to do that. And I know when people object because they don't like something, because they don't like it, if we don't follow our code, then we're putting at risk other uses coming in that are not going to be code compliant, because you'll be able to point to not following the code and other examples. So we respectfully request the Board of Zoning Appeals to reverse the decision of the Planning Commission. We will then advise the court and have the case dismissed altogether. And we respectfully request that. And if there's any other questions that I can answer, or Hannah, I would be glad to do so. And I think Ms. Wagner's resuscitation of the history is pretty accurate, because the Planning Commission originally approved it, sent back only for further hearing. They changed their mind, and that's why we went to court. Then when we participated in mediation, we went back, met with staff, made changes, and presuming that it would be resolved at planning, but it was not, without any explanation.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cohen.
Thank you.
We're going to open it up to Mr. Zamborski and Ms. Harris. I just want to remind anyone from the neighborhood that's going to speak, this case is about appealing the Planning Commission decision. So please keep your comments to that, and please keep any personal attacks or anything else out of your testimony. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Can't hear him. We can't hear you, sir.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right, I just have to talk louder. Last week, we submitted a letter to the board with our comments about the appeal. And I just wondered, did you receive that, Madam Chair? Have you had a chance to read it?
Not that I remember. Ms. Kukla, did we get that?
Madam Chair, we received that late on Friday. I believe that Maurice Rowlands has a copy of it and has included it in the PowerPoint today.
Sorry, going the wrong way.
There we go.
Okay, so this is the letter. All right. So So we have your letter
Man.
here, so go ahead and give us the highlights of this letter.
Okay. Maurice, are you able to show that as a single page so it's a bit larger?
Oh, I can zoom in onto one.
Oh, all right. Well, all right. So, I think you all understand that I'm one of the appellants and property owners who came to the BZA in 2019 regarding the developer's original townhouse proposal. And for context, there were two other appellants, and on page 1 of our letter, we show three photographs of our three properties at the intersection where Mr. Knetz is proposing to build the townhouses. On the bottom, on page 1, the bottom left photograph with the turret is the townhouse that I live in. So, in fact, I don't have anything against townhouses. I live in one and I love it and I welcome more. In the top right corner you can see a little blue house in the background behind the development site. That's where that's High Pagan's property, and she is on she's on this call to speak to it. So then looking at the rendering on page 2, or over to the right of the screen that we're looking at, you've got the rendering of the developer's project. All right. And it's a handsome building. There's no question about it. But if you look at those and then you look at the site in front of Miss Pagan's little blue house over on the left there, it begs the question, how on earth does the form and the mass of this structure fit onto the site in front of Miss Pagan's little blue house? And how does this design have any relationship to the context and character of a two-family residential district in Ohio City? And again, the townhouse that I live in fits the context and the character of the neighboring homes up and down Bridge and West 47th Street. So, the renderings are great, but they're a bit misleading about site location in an Ohio City residential neighborhood. They simply exclude any visual reference to the actual neighborhood context, character, and scale. And remember, compared to what you're looking at our three properties on the corner, which are characteristic of the properties going down 47th Street and the properties on the neighboring block going either direction on Bridge. Remember, this design that we're looking at is a double row project with an auto port in between. Eliminating one unit from the rear frontage does nothing to relieve the overwhelming and really kind of clumsy, boxy mass along Bridge Avenue and on the entire site. So removing 1 out of 12 units does serve some purpose on the interior frontage, but it doesn't address the fundamental issue of neighborhood context and appropriate scale or massing. So, Maurice, if you could go to the next page, please. So after much discussion, CPC did reject the new plan that we just saw up there on page 2. All right, in a 4-2 vote, as Mr. Coyne pointed out. So now Mr. Knetz has appealed to you again to overturn a CPC decision on this site. And the developer rails at CPC members making judgments regarding layout and design. But over there on the right, here is exactly what the townhouse ordinance says. Paragraph 337. Maurice, can you maybe blow that up a little bit? The compatibility.
What are you talking about?
Pardon me?
It's hard to hear you. What were you saying?
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you blow up the compatibility paragraph with the yellow highlighting? So
we can see that.
I
Okay,
think
you
it's
can see-
clearly visible.
Yeah.
So right out of the Townhouse Code, paragraph 337-031, the development shall be visually compatible with nearby properties with respect to such design elements as scale, height, setbacks, roof lines, architectural character, and proportions of architectural features. So the ordinance requires commission members to use their judgment. The questions and challenges raised throughout the last 2 years by both the neighborhood and CPC have consistently pointed out that the project design fails to comply with the ordinance's requirement for appropriate scale and compatibility. Context is everything here. The design of the project, giving its overwhelming footprint, 3-story high brick wall, flat roof, and parapet design, is incompatible with the architectural character of the neighborhood. All right, that's not to say townhouses don't fit in the neighborhood. It's to say, back on our page 1 illustrations, this project is so massive compared to the character going up and down West 47th Street and Bridge that it is just out of scale. And if you look to the bottom of page 3 there, the elevation comparisons composites, this was painstakingly prepared by our consulting architect for accuracy. And these, as you see in the row, these are scale photographs of the adjacent and nearby homes along West 47th Street and Bridge. They clearly demonstrate the point of just the enormous scale of the proposed project. So we and the CPC members have consistently asserted that the massing and weight of this design simply sit too heavy on the site. The setbacks, you know, I have to respectfully disagree with Hannah, but the setbacks do not conform with the natural pedestrian and sidewalk sightlines. And the proposed design is not visually compatible in the context of the immediately surrounding homes or a primarily single 1 and 2 family district. And then finally, Hannah showed you the developer's PowerPoint slide of site contacts and nearby townhome archetypes, all right, which is over there on the right of your screen. If you look carefully, these visuals are misleading, all right? The middle row are projects that were built in the early 1900s, which in general would not be permitted under the current zoning code and townhouse ordinance.
Maurice, can you blow that one up, please? I'm sorry.
Sure. Yeah, Maurice, can you do that?
Thank you. Continue, sir.
Yeah,
I just
continue
want to be
talking.
able to see it.
Okay, are we good to keep going?
Yes.
All right. So the middle row, you know, these are early 1900s buildings. They wouldn't be permitted under the zoning code and townhouse ordinance of today. The bottom row is a form that probably most of you all are familiar with that would never be accepted because of all the driveways and so on. But ironically, the setbacks on those are about 15 feet each. And then in the top row, over on the top left, that is my townhouse, right? But my townhouse is nowhere near as large as then the picture in the middle, all right? And, you know, most of these examples, including the picture in the middle, which is Mr. Knetz's own project on 47th and Lorraine, these, not only do these represent exceptions rather than the dominant residential form of the neighborhood, none of these are in scale compared to the developer's plan that you saw on page 1. So everything looks, you know, comparatively in scale to each other. At the very least, they should be subjected to an accurate elevation and scale comparison to the proposed design. So now if you, well, you did look closely at the top picture in the middle of these archetypes. If you go to the next page, Maurice, please. Mm, These are um, photographs of that actual building in the context of the surrounding homes. So I don't know. Maurice, can you blow that up to fill the screen a little better? Easier to see. Thank you. So this is the actual building compared to what you saw in the comparative example on the earlier page. This is a 5-unit single row prototype of what the developer is proposing. Comparing this to the 11-unit double stacked rendering back on page 2, which the CPC rejected. Also, if you look closely at these pictures, well, you can't really zoom in that closely. But let's see. Like Maurice, can you zoom in on the bottom section of the pictures, the top right one, or just under the wording? You've already zoomed. So anyhow, well, okay, that's helpful. Thanks, Maurice. Also, if you look closely, you'll notice the setback was insufficient to prevent pedestrians and bicyclists from colliding with the open ground floor casement windows. So the developer simply reduced the width of the sidewalk, which you can see in the bottom right, or the bottom.
Hey, Mr. Zamborski, we're not evaluating this unit, so we're not going to be talking about this. This is not what Knez is presenting today. So
okay,
I understand what you're trying to say, but we can't look at that.
Okay, well, thank you. So I think the bottom line is, if you consider all the other photographs, graphs, and commentary here, number one, CPC has an obligation to consider context and all these issues of scale, height, massing, and so on and so forth. And if you look at the renderings for the project compared to the context of the neighborhood, the project is simply out of scale for this particular site. So I believe CPC made a fair, reasonable, and fully informed decision to again disapprove this project in its current proposed form. And given full disclosure, I believe DZA or any other authority, including the 8th Circuit Court, would have to agree with CPC. This project on this specific site is incompatible in the heart of Ohio City residential neighborhood. And it does fail to comply with the spirit and intent of either the townhouse ordinance or the 1995 Bickerstaff residential design guidelines of the city. So I believe CPC acted properly in its decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
Faye or hi, Faye. You want to talk?
I'm sorry, Ms. Brett, may I respond to that before we move on?
Well, I'll give you a chance to respond to everything in one second. And Ms. Harris, please keep your comments to whatever Mr. Zamborski did not say. So if you have something else new you want to add, since you guys are together here.
Yes, I do. I'd like to clarify on August the 16th, the reason why I think you, I want to appreciate and thank you for allowing us to speak, not only as neighbors and residents. I've lived on West 47th Street for 34 years. So I can basically tell you, I was in attendance on August 16th at the CPC meeting. But prior to that, on August the 14th, the Knez team and Ohio City Inc. was going over the revised plans of the 12-unit townhome. And what had happened was that since the Knez team could not get anywhere with the neighbors and the rest of the residents on West 47th Street, they went shopping for another block club. So what they did was another block club that would approve the plan, they decided to go with them. So at about Thursday, the 15th, at 9:53 a.m. in the
Ms. Harris, I understand what you're saying, but we have to keep it to this case that we're talking about today. So
Right, but
that's why I tried to steer you away from anything personal
Okay.
you have against Knez or
No, we don't
the
have
history of
anything.
what's going on.
Right, we
So
don't have
just
anything.
talk about this case we have right now before us.
Okay, but again, they're basically stating that we do not like townhomes. We are not against any type of development. We're looking for appropriate development. Now, CPC did agree with us because we were able to bring up points to CPC about the compatibility. Basically, when we did talk to city planning staff early on with this project, we asked them, what was the key components? They said Section E. Section E covers compatibility. So we stayed on that throughout the whole, from May 2019 all the way up till now. We never deviated from that. We did talk to architects, planners. We talked to professional people that could get us educated and what does the city look for. So we did all those things, but basically we were discounted. Aaron, Steve, Isaiah, as well as the other residents on West 47th Street, we brought those issues up to the CPC, which they weren't even really going over, but we brought it to their attention and they addressed the issue. That's why we agree with CPC. So we feel that we're standing by with CPC and we feel that it should not be overturned. And basically that with the 8th District Court of Appeals waiting, we feel that we're asking the Board of Zoning Appeal not to overturn this case and basically side with CPC and let the 8th District Court of Appeals go ahead and make their decision on this case. But we are being labeled like we do not want development. And we do. We want development. We just want appropriate development.
Thank you, Ms. Harris. Okay, Ms. Heidi, are you there? I thought she was there.
Hi, they, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes, there you are. Okay, go ahead.
I was muted and didn't realize it. Thank you very much for listening. I just want to add a few things that were not discussed. First of all, there was a lot of discussion at the Planning Commission meeting. I attended. Second of all, they did ask why not make those changes, but the decision was based on two areas. Two of the members on the committee stated that the building was too dense for the site. That was a major reason, and it was reiterated. It was stated and it was reiterated after the vote. The second thing is that there was a big concern about the safety of the auto courts because the entrance to the buildings are on the front and in the rears. The only way to exit is through a garage door, and there were no man doors. And basically the statement was that I'm concerned about the safety and this is no way to live regarding the auto courts. So this is, I state this because Mr. Coyne says that there was next to no discussion, and yes, there was discussion. The second item I wanted to make, and this relates to the auto court also, is that earlier someone made the statement that 22 feet is pretty tight. Well, in this auto court, we're talking even less, 20 feet. So I wanted to point that out. The CPC did state that the new townhouse code, because it had not been passed, was not to be used in making a decision about this. They were appreciative of some of the changes. They pointed out also that there were other parts of the new townhouse that were not looked at. It was picked and chosen. Another point that I want to make is, yes, those buildings are absolutely gorgeous. I agree, they are gorgeous, but they are too huge for that setting. All those buildings will get beautiful light, I will not, because my house is completely blocked from any sunlight. Also, if you were to look at the drawing of the rendering and you see the split between the 8th and 9th building, when you saw the renderings, you saw that even in that small area, there was shade. There was hardly any light. So it is blocking a lot of light. And I just want to check real quick to make sure that I didn't miss anything. But basically, I agree with the Planning Commission. I think they have, I know that I have worked or tried to work with Knez all along, and I am not against development. I just don't think that this is the appropriate plan for this site. Put it on Detroit, put it on Lorraine, put it on Carnegie, but not here. And even when the presentation was going, Hannah stated that Lorraine is high density, and as you move into the bridge area, she even said mid-density, but this is a high density design. And that'll be it. Thank you very much for listening. If you have any questions.
Thank you. I'll let Knez rebut what we just heard here, and then we're going to sew it up.
Thank you. I'll start off, and I know Hannah wants to speak. I'll be very brief. For the record, the Black Club in which the property is located approved the project and design originally. Local design review also approved the design. And I have to come back to this comment when they cite to that one section of the code about setback, side yard, massing scale, and height. That is all regulated by the code. That's regulated by the code. And so when you do a project and you meet the code, what else do you do but try to do that? And in this case, we have neighbors that are objecting. And by the way, I live in this neighborhood too. I'm well aware of what Bridge Avenue looks like, and I've lived there for 34 years. This is a good project on property that was poorly maintained for 2 decades as a gas station and auto repair facility. This is a huge upgrade to it, and I'd respectfully request that the board reverse the decision of the Planning Commission based on the record before you. And by the way, the record before you, which has been filed, shows you what occurred at the Planning Commission. And there's nothing about not complying with some sections of the code that were mentioned. And the scaling that was presented by Mr. Zamborski is very misleading. And I'll let Hannah Cohen speak to that. But I thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you. And I wanted to cut that down about other projects being in comparison, as well as not used as evidence here. And also will state that I don't really think that 11 townhouse units is considered high density, but just wanted to put that out there as well. Okay, go ahead, Hannah.
Hi. Really quickly, I just wanted to follow up on some of the things Tony mentioned. The first was in that elevation comparison shown in Mr. Zamborski's letter. We've seen this image before, and I checked it. Our building, as shown in his image, is not true to scale. So I find that very misleading. And I just want to note that our building is not scaled properly in the elevation comparison included in his letter. And the other thing I just wanted to speak to, all the comments about the building features, the site appropriateness, setbacks, materials, the aesthetics, the massing, all of that was approved and received very favorably at the design review. We went to Near West Design Review with this many times over different iterations, and we've gotten very positive feedback. And some of the more subjective items in the town code that have to do with the design of it were all, in my opinion, appropriately vetted by the specific design review committee for the project.
Okay, thank you, Hannah. All right, we've heard both sides, all sides here, board. I'll open it up for questions, comments, motions.
Madam Chair, Maurice Rollins from City Planning. I would like to reiterate what actually did happen at the Planning Commission this time, not the past times that talks about the townhouse code update when that was presented and the last time that this was presented in August, because that's not what we're hearing right now. We're hearing about what happened for this most recent plan, which is actually a new submission. There was a relatively, I will say, relatively brief discussion for the Planning Commission on this project this time around, and they were mostly focused on the lack of a man door in the auto court. I will point out that it does meet the current townhouse code right now as it is drawn, and I would not, I don't think I would advise to evaluate this based on the new townhouse code update that we are trying to do, because we're not even sure in the staff right now how that update is going to look. So I think you really should look at what is actually in the books right now, and this is code compliant with that. There was a comment from one of the Planning Commission members, which Mr. Coyne already stated, that that he thought that the buildings looked clunky. But the main thing that they talked about this time was the lack of the auto courts. Not the lack of auto courts, the lack of man doors in the auto court building, where there is the Mew building actually. So not even man doors on the front building that faces on a bridge, but the building, which is considered a Mew's building, which faces which is the back side of the building. That's what they were primarily hung up on.
Thank you, Marie. And I will.
And I don't know if anybody brought this up, but the let me go back to the conditions that they put on. The one main condition was that they would move Building 9 next to Building 8 to move this green space closer to the existing residents right here and provide a little bit more relief there, which they agreed to do.
Okay, thank you. And I will also say that we only heard this case because of the appeal. It's clear that the building had met all the zoning codes, so we wouldn't even be here if the project did not get disapproved by Planning Commission.
Right.
So.
And the only reason it was to the Planning Commission was because you're doing a townhouse in a two-family district.
Right. All right, I think we got all the facts out there. Board.
Madam Chair, this is Ms. Barnes. I'm a little confused on if they're in court, why are we standing in the middle of their decision? I think we should wait to see what the real decision is before we, as a board, step in. Or what you thinking? I don't know. I'm trying to understand.
No, Ms. Barnes, yeah, I tried to clarify that earlier. So they did take it to court, and the court told them to use some kind of mitigation with the city and arbitration to figure out what to do. And so part of that is to come to us. So if we go ahead and do whatever our decision is, so if we decide to overturn the decision, then that will be it. And then if we decide to agree with Planning Commission's decision, then they'll take it further to court. So we do have standing right now to rule on this case.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I do have a question to Maurice about moving the green space. Was that agreed to by the developer? You're on mute.
It was, yes.
Yes, it was agreed to.
Any other questions, board? If not, I'll entertain a motion. I need one. It's too quiet. Someone has to make a motion.
Madam Chair, just formulating my thoughts here.
Okay.
So we've heard a lot of testimony, pro and con. Appreciate the comments from city planning as to what transpired in the CPC meeting. But before us is the decision to overturn CPC as being arbitrary, capricious, et cetera, et cetera. And so our decision is then to make the ruling on that. So I am going to make the motion that we uphold the city planning decision so that we can vote on this.
Second.
So your vote, so your motion is to keep the denial from city planning?
My motion is to keep the denial so that we can make a vote on this.
I'm confused. We're either making a motion to uphold their decision or we're making a motion to deny
Yes.
their decision.
Right.
So
Sorry.
which one do you want to do?
I'm making a motion to uphold their decision so that we can move to a vote.
No, you want to move to a vote to uphold the decision.
And we have a second.
Right. I'm making a motion to uphold CPC's decision.
All right. Motion on the floor. Can I have a second?
Second, Ms. Barnes.
Ms. Barnes with second. Go ahead, call the roll, Ms. Kukla.
Ms. Brown? Ms. Brown?
Yeah.
Are you thinking? Sorry.
I'm really trying to understand the motion. I'm sorry. So,
Her motion is to uphold the planning commission's denial of this project.
And Madam Chair, to just for clarification, a motion can be made and votes. Does the person who made the motion have to agree to and support the motion? That might be a question for Lori Wagner.
No, that would not be true. Anybody can make a motion, and the person who's making the motion can choose to vote against it. In that case, they just made the motion to allow them
the vote
proceed.
To proceed.
To have a vote, to have it proceed.
Right.
It's unusual, but it can be done, and Miss Faith can vote either way.
yes.
Right.
Okay.
As well as Miss Barnes.
But we'll vote yes.
And that is in support of the motion. Ms. Barnes?
Wait. It's
Ms. Brown, you're voting to support the Ms. Faith's motion, correct?
which is to uphold the city planning
Yes.
commission vote.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, Ms. Barnes?
Ms. Barnes is yes.
Ms. Faith?
No.
Ms. Britt?
No.
All right, we have a tie, Madam Chair. So,
all right.
Lori, could you explain to us what this means?
It means that the appellant has come here to ask the board to overturn Planning Commission's decision. That has not occurred because that requires a positive 3 votes to do. Therefore, in essence, the Planning Commission decision is upheld, and it's up to the court system now.
Can another motion be made to go the other direction or not?
It can, since you don't have 3 people voting in favor of either motion, you can definitely make another motion if you choose.
I was just about to suggest that if anyone on the floor wants to make a different motion to see if that passes.
Madam Chair, I can make another motion, but I would wonder if one of my colleagues would rather.
And that would be different than the one or the same?
It would be different, the motion would be different. So the motion that was put on the floor was to uphold the planning commission decision, and that came to a stalemate. The next motion would be to deny the planning commission's decision. But as the board, we need to make a decision. So somebody needs to do something.
Well, Madam Chair, if there's no additional motion, we
Yeah.
can go forward with what's happened.
I hear, Madam Chair, the question that you posed to us. And I asked questions trying to better understand the motion. I'm still struggling with this though. The question is the action of the planning commission, right? That's really what we're here.
The question is whether the action of the planning commission is supported by the evidence or was arbitrary or unreasonable in the context of the whole history of this case, which was the planning commission did approve it the first time. But basically, the motion was made to uphold planning commission's decision, which would mean the project is not approved. I think what's under discussion now is a motion to reverse planning commission's decision, which would mean that the project would be approved, and that's totally up to the board.
So we need another motion, or it stands that we're split, and so then that upholds the planning commission's decision.
May I ask one more question to the legal representative? And if we make a decision, does the appellant still have the ability to go to court, or does this stop everything?
It's a slightly different plan. I mean, the appellant's already in court. This was a slightly different submission. If the board approved this plan and reverse planning commission, then first of all, the neighbors withstanding could appeal to court. If they chose not to do so, the appellant could say, okay, this is the plan we submitted and we want a building permit. If the board does not overturn planning commission, then it's already in court on the prior decision. Does that explain your question?
It does. Madam Chair, I'll put forth a motion to, I don't even know how to frame it. That's what I was asking you.
I think you want to uphold or reverse the decision of planning commission.
I will put forth a motion to reverse the decision of the planning commission.
Thank you. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Second by Ms. Bates. Go ahead, call the roll, Ms. Kukla.
Ms. Barnes?
I'm not agreeing with that. I oppose I like for the city to stay where it's at. I don't know how we vote on that.
So you say no?
No.
Ms. Bates?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
I'm voting yes.
Ms. Britt?
Yes.
Calendar number 21-192 is granted. You have decided to overturn the decision of the City Planning Commission. This denial will be ratified next week, and we will send the appellant a letter.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are we on the old business now? Is that
We
it?
are an old business, Madam Chair. We have 1
Well,
through
let me
8.
Let's get it on the
change
screen
this.
here.
Sorry.
That's all right.
It's
All right.
Monday.
Yeah. All right. Old business 1 through 8 without objection, board.
Without objection.
Without objection.
Without objection.
Thank you. Then we have a request for reinstatement. What's going on here, Liz?
The attorney is stating that he did not receive a letter and or the link, and therefore they did not attend the hearing. The applicant stated that he believed that the architect was going to be representing him. So they are asking for reinstatement.
Oh, is this the case
Madam Chair.
from last Monday they were missing?
Yeah, that's our
Yes.
no-show.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I also contacted them by email the week of the meeting asking for drawings and plans and never heard back.
And in this case, Madam Chair, if we do not grant the reinstatement, they'll just have to apply again.
Yeah.
And I believe that they would just have to apply with me again. I don't think Building and Housing would require them to restart with them.
Well, considering the history of this, I would suggest that they reapply.
I'm in agreement.
Board members without objection?
Without objection.
Without objection.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. And this Hessler case still going to court?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I notified you of this or not. There is some question as to whether or not it was filed appropriately, so I wasn't sure if I should let you know that this has happened. But I thought that I should just go ahead and notify you. And if it doesn't go to court, I will let you know. Ms. Downey is the attorney that I am working with in the law department.
You mean their filing with the court may not have been done correctly, or you met with us?
Right, no, with the court, a comment, please.
Thank you.
So the case may be dismissed.
Thank you.
We're signing affidavits regarding the full application made, whether or not it was served correctly to us.
Yeah, the question will be whether they met the prerequisites in the revised code for filing an appeal, and that's something that Ms. Downey and the appellates will address with the court, and the court will make a decision on that.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Well, that's it.
That's it.
Madam Liz, did you want to go into executive session to talk about those zoning changes that we were talking about, or is that just a conversation for another time? Or
I think it's a conversation for another time. I wasn't prepared
Okay.
to, but Ms. Britt would be aware of the purpose of the conversation. The goal is to reduce the number of hearings that we have. I guess there's a person who is interested in the open position, but it will be hard for them to meet as often as we do. And this is not the first time we've heard this, so we are attempting to make some changes to the code. And this is just preliminary conversations about what we think would be good changes, or and that would include administrative approvals or just allowing certain things outright, because we do grant certain variances over and over again. So if we could change the code to eliminate those coming to us and also create some administrative approvals for other cases, and that could help us squeeze those cases onto 2 hearings a month instead of 4. So that is what's
I'm glad
happening.
you
Not
guys
that
are
we don't want to see you every week.
Well, I'm just glad you guys are finally listening to me. So thank you.
Well, and the chief, we mentioned this for the to the chief because again, we are looking to get somebody new on here, and also we met with him, and he's of course looking for ideas to streamline the process for the applicants too. So it's a new administration, so things are changing.
All right,
Yeah,
fantastic.
so if we can reduce the number of cases, we could go to every 2 weeks.
Right.
Right.
All righty then. Well, everyone have a good week. We won't have a quorum next week, so we got.
Oh, right. Thank you.
Oh, that's just a shame. No quorum next week.
Yep, no quorum next week. So I'll see you the week
Enjoy
after
your
that.
President's Day.
All right, Joey,
Yeah.
you heard
Okay.
that, right?
Thank you, everyone. Well, we
Hope
set a
our-
record for 2022. This is the longest meeting so far.
Yeah,
So far,
It is, yeah.
yeah.
So,
We
so
don't want to do that again.
Yeah,
All right,
but not
everyone
even
have,
close to being the longest.
so we do
Yeah,
not,
the West 70,
I'm sorry, go
go ahead.
ahead. I just
Well, I was
wanted
just going to say the West 76 piece completely caught us by surprise because that didn't come in till, early this morning. We had no idea there was all those objections.
yeah,
So,
yeah, that was an interesting twist. And so we do not have a quorum next week, right?
That's right. Right.
Okay, all right. All right, just checking, so I
okay.
All right. Thank
travel
you.
if I need to.
Thank you.
All right, thank you,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
See you in 2
Thank you,
weeks.
everyone.
Bye.
And
Bye.
Bye.